Hey YouTube, what's up? This is Ashley Nicole, and welcome back to my channel. Y'all, I'm back. I know it's been a long time, but and it's funny because I really only have a few minutes to be on here, but it was basically on my heart to come here today. Y'all know my channel is, we kind of talk about mental health on this channel, different things that kind of come up on the radar as far as like in the media and things like that. If I feel it's of importance to discuss when it's related to mental health and I feel compelled to talk about it, then I come on my channel to do that, just to bring awareness to mental health and let people know and understand that it's okay to talk about these things, to normalize talking about mental health. And so I was really compelled today because, and y'all, let me just start this by saying, because I'm gonna like jump right into it, because I don't have much time. Um, this story is so sad. I'm not sure if you all have heard about, and I'm sure you have, of Dr. Bonnie Bailey. She was the, I believe she was the VP of Student Affairs. Let me check that real quick. Um, yeah, she was the VP of Student Affairs, and on January 8th, she unalived herself. Based on what we kind of see and what I've kind of researched and heard of, because she felt like she was being bullied at work, or maybe not being bullied, but maybe not being supported in what she was going through at work. And this is really near and dear to me because this is the specialty that I have in my practice, right? I help women navigate the work environment when it comes to anxiety, stress, um, short term disability, right? Kind of supporting them and helping them navigate that whole process. Because when you are dealing with a mental health issue, whether it be anxiety, depression, or anything else, right? It's difficult to be productive at work. And it's also even more difficult to have, sometimes depending on the support or the support you don't have at work, to interact with people, right? And so this is why it's so important to me to talk about this. And this video, right, or this live is just, based on my opinion from the things that I've heard in the media and things like that, right? But it's also near and dear to me because she was an AKA. And um, so she was my sis, right? And so when I heard about this story, I think I was like scrolling on YouTube, right? And Roland Martin had a video about it, and he had some people come to talk about, what was going on. He read a little bit of the letter that she left, and y'all, it was so sad. The things that this lady was saying she had to kind of go through in the process of her job. Now, she was the VP of Student Affairs at Lincoln University, which is an HBCU in Missouri. And y'all know I'm from St. Louis. So I was like, what is what's going on, right? Um, and so she started working there the beginning or middle of last year, and she unalived herself January 8th, but of this year. So throughout this time, right, she, based on what we know in the letter, she had been going through so many things and interactions with her immediate manager per se. When you think about just like the hierarchy in the work environment, right? This was like her immediate manager. Kind of, I mean, the letter was so long, guys, right? um, kind of laying out what she was dealing with, what support she felt like she wasn't getting, right? Really calling them out. And this is so hard, especially for Black women to do, because I'm gonna just be frank here. And I'm not speaking, in this way just because this is what I think, this is what I know. I have encountered these types of things. And also, I've worked with a lot of clients who experience this in the workplace because there is a specific depending on the workplace that you're in, this is may not be in all workplaces, right? But depending on the workplace that you are in and the people that you work with, there is a stereotype for Black women in the workplace, right? And a lot of times it results in pressure upon ourselves to be a certain way, act a certain way, say things in a certain way because we don't want people to view us in a certain way, right? However, if you are also dealing with mental health issues, which Dr. Bonnie Bailey, kind of stated in her letter, right? She was dealing with anxiety. She had it was mentioned that, she had challenges with severe depression and things like that. And she reached out for support, to her colleagues and to her immediate manager. And she felt like she didn't get that support, and we can like read between the lines based on the letter that she wrote that it may have been stated that she was going to get support because this is like policy and procedure, but that she could see between the lines that, okay, I'm not really being supported or I'm being viewed a certain way because I have, outright stated I'm dealing with anxiety and or depression, right? And people feel a certain way about mental health there, even though on social media, I feel like it's like a trend now, right? Oh, go see a therapist, right? You see all these ads and things like that, right? um but when you really sit down and think about it, the severity of people experiencing anxiety and depression, it is real, y'all, right? And that thing will stop you in your tracks. You cannot be productive at work. You can be productive at home. And it's easier said than done for someone who has not experienced anxiety and or depression. And this is, other mental health conditions as well. It's easier said than done to say, well, just get up, right? Girl, get up and, just put on some clothes and get to work. It's not that easy for someone who has been dealing with this for a long time, right? So if someone is reaching out support, especially in their workplace, this is why I always tell people you got to know what the benefits are at the place that you work because there are specific benefits if you are, work is becoming too much, you feel overwhelmed, you feel stressed, things like that, right? But I also understand that with those benefits, it's like a risk that you are taking, right? Even though no one is supposed to know why you're out of work and things like that, we're dealing with humans and people talk and people say things out of turn and people don't think before they speak, right? And so in some of the letter, she was kind of saying that instead of kind of listening to me and supporting me, the immediate manager, and I can't remember his name, um, he kind of based the information off of what somebody told him, right? And these things happen in workplace environments all of the time, right? But for someone to get to a point where they feel like they just cannot take it anymore, right? I can't even imagine how Dr. Bonnie Bailey was feeling in in the letter, she also mentioned how she would go above and beyond, how she would work 24/7, working late at night, right? In her having a staff. She didn't expect them to do that, she was saying, right? Like, I don't want them to be working like I will do it, right? We oftentimes put ourselves put other people before ourselves, right? And doing all of these things for the greater good. And it results in you putting yourself on the back burner. We simply cannot do that. We can't do it, right? And so her letter that she left seemed like it was, I want, her saying, I want people to know how this really has affected me, right? And if nothing is done about it, other people, not only in her role, but maybe, and this happens across the board, right? This happens in entry level positions, right? It especially also happens in leadership positions, right? And people thinking, oh, okay, yeah, you're in a leadership position, you can do it all, right? You can stay late, you have no issue with that. Like, you're good at this, you have all of these skills, you're a doctor, like, you can figure this thing out. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's too much. So if someone has asked for time off of work because they, need to regroup, they got to get it together. They have to recharge, right? They have to pour into themselves because they have been pouring so much into work. Then that's what it is. The benefit is there, right? There are so many things that I could say regarding this situation, right? Based on even my own personal experience, you know. And I think I mentioned this before in one of my other lives, there was a time where I worked in corporate environment and I was going above and beyond, right? Now, one thing I wouldn't do, child, was stay late. Now, that's the one thing my colleagues, if you ask any one of my colleagues, they would tell you, no, Ashley, oh no, she out of here. I didn't care. I didn't care what the salary was. I didn't care if it was a meeting after a certain time, a last minute meeting. I'm out of there, right? Because it got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm doing all of this, but what benefit am I really seeing? Right? It's like I've stayed all these hours, but then now I don't have time for myself. I don't have time for my family, right? Trying to get all of this done for what? And for me, when I really thought about it at that time, it was to ensure, and I think at that time too, I was trying to get like a different position. I was trying to, be in leadership and things like that. Right. So it's like, okay, well, I have to do all these things to prove to them that I could be in leadership, right? When I realized I don't have to do that, right? I got to a point where I already know that I'm the ish. Right? But these are the pressures that we put on ourselves, right? And these unwritten things that kind of happen in the workplace. And so, of course, eventually, y'all know I got to a point where, I started my own practice and things like that, right? And it's the best thing that I could have done, right? Because it's like all this time I'm doing all of these things for a company, right? In an organization who really in the grand scheme of things, if this place fall apart tomorrow, guess what they're gonna say? Oh well, the place fell apart. I don't know what you're gonna do. Find another place to work. And I'm like, well, when you really sit back and think about that, it's like, okay, I need to bet on myself. I need to be doing all of this work for my own company, right? But of course, I also understand that everybody, doesn't want to, start their own company. We need people to actually work at organizations, and things like that. This is just how the world works. So it's important for you to know how to navigate the work environment, especially if you work in corporate, and how to navigate the corporate game, right? And I talked about this before. It is a game that you have to play. And instead of putting these people first, you have got to put yourself first, right? And so I kind of looked at some of the things that Dr. Bonnie Bailey put in her letter. right? And at the end of her letter, and she was, I mean, she was just really, when you talk about VP of Student Affairs, based on what she wrote in the letter, it's like, one of those individuals that really go hard for their school, for their, being an alumni and things like that. Like she really put her all into her job. It was very important to her. And there aren't a lot of, maybe just small similarities between her and this story, I mean, and Raisa Kinye. I did a live about her too. She was another woman who had a lot of issues at work, and kind of, she was feeling like discriminated against and things like that. You all can view that live as well. But at the end of Dr. Bonnie Bailey's letter, she said, if your soul is empty, troubled, in despair, and you see red flags, leave. Don't try to stick around. My soul can now rest. I filled my earthly dash, right? And so, absolutely, if you see that you're not being supported by your manager, if you see that your boss is, there are, or even on your team, there are microaggressions, things like that, right? If you start to get to a point where you feel like you don't want to go to work, right? It's difficult for you to get up and prepare. If you, every Sunday, you getting anxiety about starting work on Monday, you got to find you another job. As simple as that. You have got to find you another job because it's not worth it, right? You doing all of those things and feeling that way and still going to work. And I get it. People got bills to pay. It's real out here in the world. You know what I mean? Right? But I encourage you to take a good look at your situation and see what you can change. Even if it's not, this might not even look like you leaving your job the next week or in 2 weeks or whatever. This might be you actually putting a plan together to say, okay, in 6 months, I'm going to do this, and this to find me a different position within the company, to find a totally different, role at a different organization, right? It might be for you to gain a new skill, right? I would say this, and then I gotta go, y'all, because I got clients. If you are feeling stuck in a job, right, you need to learn a new skill if you feel stuck, right? Because most of the time, the reason why you feel stuck is that because you don't know what to do next, right? So I encourage you to take a good hard look at the skills that you have, right? And it might be you learning a new skill, right? If you have an education, right? If you have your bachelor's, if you have your master's, if you have your doctorate, and you feel stuck, you need to execute, right? Because you already have the skills. You need to execute on what you need to do next. That's simply you not talking about it, but being about it. Write down your plan of what you're going to do next. And this might be in small steps, and then you execute and do it. Even if you feel scared, right? You feel like, okay, what's going to happen? You have, you have some fear about it. You got to do it anyway because it's not worth your mental health. So I will leave it at there, y'all. I know it's been a long time. I even forgot to say in the beginning of this, Happy New Year. I wish everyone a happy and joyful and abundant 2024. I can't believe I'm even saying that. It's like unreal, but we are here, right? And you've got to show up for yourself. Right. So my time is so limited, y'all, but y'all know I love YouTube and I enjoy having these conversations. So I'm going to, in speaking to myself, right? I'm going to come up with a plan so that I can be more consistent with doing this because, um, like I said, it was put on my heart today and it matters, right? It matters. There are so many people who are going through this at work. It really matters. And it's confirmation for me, right? That um people really need help when it comes to navigating workplace stress, right? And not feeling supported at work. And this is what I do. my whole my whole career from when I started was, when I look back, helping people with this. So I will leave it at that. And like I said, in the words of Dr. Bonnie Bailey, if you feel empty, troubled, in despair, and you see red flags, leave, right? I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.